Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Worst Take, where we gather some of the worst takes of the week from anywhere and everywhere, and I try to put my input on it, to say the least. As with every one of these videos, I just want to lay a disclaimer that I'm not trying to disrespect anyone that's ever featured in this series. All I'm talking about is the take itself and the flaws in them that I see. But without further ado, let's start it off with this week's first take.
Let's go to my top 5 list. Number 5, Steph Curry. Number 4, Anthony Davis. Right here. Here you go. Number 3, yeah, Max, Kawhi Leonard. There we go. Let's get to number 2 on the list. LeBron James. I'm going to tell you who's the best in the world. Give it to me. His name is KD. His name is KD.
I don't know why they decided to do this in the middle of the finals, but we finally got Stephen A's top 5 players in the NBA list, and it's underwhelming to say the least. I'm not so mad at the players he included, but more so the reason why he put them in that order, or more so the lack of it. Because throughout this take, it deadass just sounds like Stephen A just put players on the board and just showed people their strengths.
Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. No, he's not an elite defender, but his offense, his shot is so potent, it affects defenses. This can defend 4 different positions, can play with his back to basket, can play facing the basket, walks around averaging 28 and 11. We know what LeBron can do. He went to 8 straight NBA finals. Show him your respect, okay?
There's no real criteria for his reasoning. He doesn't really have a priority list of any sort. It just seemed like he ordered these based on what sounded good. And knowing Stephen A, you know he knows how to make things sound good. But in terms of the actual list itself, I have 2 main problems with it. 1, why is Anthony Davis above Stephen Curry? What has AD ever done in his career that warrants him to be put above Steph Curry in any list? Aside from him being a much better defender than Curry, he hasn't done anything significant in his career, especially in the last year for him to even be in the same tier as Curry. This is a guy who only has 1 career playoff series win, and I don't even want to spend time going through Curry's resume because I have been showing some Curry fanboy tendencies lately, and I really don't want to do that. But if the reasoning as to why AD is above Curry is because of his all-around skill and defensive prowess, then why isn't Giannis above Curry as well? I mean, aside from minor differences between the two, there's no reason why you'd have AD above Curry and not Giannis as well, especially given that Giannis has more postseason success and will probably be the MVP this year. And speaking of Giannis, I just don't get his exclusion on this list at all. The reason he gave was,
number 2, and more importantly, just because you had a great season doesn't mean you belong on this list. If that was the case, James Harden would be on this list, and he's not.
I'm sorry, Giannis literally underperformed against just the Raptors. He dominated the Celtics in 5 games and made short work of the Pistons in the first round. And he still played well the first 2 games of the Eastern Conference Finals. So essentially the only reason why Giannis isn't top 5 in Stephen A's book is just the last 4 games of the Eastern Conference Finals. That's it. And if that's the case, again, why is AD even up there? Aside from putting up numbers, AD didn't do anything significant this year. He just didn't. His trade request just caused turmoil for the team. He was injury prone and wasn't even on pace to make the playoffs. If you want to put KD, Steph, LeBron, and Kawhi above him, cool, I understand that. But I will just never get why AD is above Steph and Giannis in that specific order. I just don't. Please, someone in the comment section, give me a solid argument. I'm just dead ass confused. So I've made it kind of a habit, or I'm trying to ask you guys on Twitter for some of the worst takes you guys have seen, just in case I missed anything the past week. And in the process, I got this reply. Now I asked if he knew where it was from, and he said he just didn't. He found it somewhere and just saved it on his computer. but I'm just gonna assume it's from some IG page or something. And my god, is this an awful take. Just the lack of context and disrespect to Bird is ridiculous. For one, he had to set the specific parameter that they would get the ball first. Okay. But also, why are you using a one-on-one pickup game to make a comment on Bird's entire 5-on-5 NBA career? What sense does that make? Heck, if you're gonna go this far, why is he even in your top 10 as you mentioned? But I also want to talk about his comment on the lack of perimeter defenders in the 80s. Now, I did do some research and I must admit, it was pretty hard looking for great perimeter defenders that specifically guarded Larry Bird in this era. But then it hit me. Why would there be? Let's keep in mind that the three-point line was just being introduced in this era, and that offenses were still primarily ran through centers and big men. Now yes, there were great perimeter, in quotes, players such as Magic, Dr. J, Elgin Baylor, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, Dominique Wilkins that played in this era. But how many of those players were real perimeter threats to begin with before the 90s? Jerry West, Larry Bird, Pete Maravich, who else? Those three players also played decades apart, so it wasn't like they were in the league at the same time. Most of those players still scored most of their buckets by driving to the paint and finishing with a hint of a mid-range game. So what most teams did was they didn't even bother to find a great perimeter defender and instead used their big men to contest those drives. Just the lack of context when it comes to this take is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This next one is from a LSU football player, Braden Fajoko. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name, I am sorry. And also, I know I already said the disclaimer in the beginning of the video, but I just want to say this again. I'm not trying to mess with you or start any beef because I just wouldn't hold up. I'd get my ass beat 99.9% of the time. I'm just keeping it a buck. But my man said that these Toronto Raptors are less talented than the 2018 Cleveland Cavaliers. Come on now, what are we doing here? His reasoning was that people are revising history because before the playoffs, it was just the Lowry Leonard show and guys like Siakam weren't even getting credit, and now people are just gassing them up. One, Siakam was in most improved conversations the whole year and will probably win the award. Two, you can clearly see that there is a system in Toronto and it's not just reliant on two players. And three, I vividly remember, before knowing Siakam would be the player that he is, before the Marc Gasol trade, there were already discussions of Toronto having arguably the best starting five in the East next to the Celtics, and that going into this season, that it was Boston, Toronto, and everyone else in the East. Please tell me in the comment section if I'm tripping because I'm pretty sure I'm not.
To the finals.
Yeah, remember he likes Toronto.
I think there are two teams, we're going to get to that in a second, that are real threats to the Warriors. They're both in the East. And the Celtics, if they get by the Raptors in the Eastern Conference Finals, they could win the chip. But I think Toronto's good enough to knock the Celtics out.
But the 2018 Cavs out of all teams, 2017 Cavs, okay, I still wouldn't agree, but I can kind of see the argument there. But the 2018 Cavaliers, the one that people were saying was the worst team LeBron has had to carry to the finals since 2007, the 50-win, 4th-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers were better than these Toronto Raptors? Come on, big dog. I know you can do better than that. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's entry to Worst Take. I got 3 takes this week. I'm trying to make it so that it's not just from ESPN, First Take, or Undisputed. I'm trying to get it from all over the internet, really. So once again, if you guys see some terrible takes, please at me on Twitter at TheBSouls, and feel free to follow me as well if you're already there. If you like the video, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I am out. Peace.